Welcome to Stan Now Considers All Things. What does it mean to be well educated? That's really what we're going to be looking at in the next 13 weeks. We're going to try and explore what it means to be well educated, and we're going to explore why you should seek to have that kind of education. You think to yourself, I've got a good job, I make enough money, why bother? There are voices in our culture that tell us, well, education just means you get a better job, or you make more money, or you influence people, dazzle them. Those things may be true, but there's more to it than that. I think those voices from society miss the main point of why a person should seek what is called a good or liberal education. Life is precious. It is to be savored. Would you want to go through life, say for example, just eating cotton candy, versus the possibilities of having a good meal, at least every once in a while? Whatever a good meal means to you, whether it be a rack of lamb or a fine wine, whatever. But more about this, about having a good education, of what it means and why we should have it. Let me now talk about the topics, the things that we're going to look at in these 13 weeks. We're going to have features that talk about philosophy and what is the real meaning of philosophy that has been looked at in the last 2,500 years. We'll look at science, not just the formulas and the hard facts and how to do an experiment, but the philosophy and the thoughts behind real science that every educated person should know. We'll look at history. Is it just bunk? We'll look at economics. We'll examine the great books that we have as heirs of Western civilization in literature and poetry and drama. We'll look at aspects of physical health. We'll look at geometry, not just the old formulas that they have for the area of a triangle, but the more important parts, the geometrical reasoning that began many thousands of years ago. We'll look at a little bit of usage and diction and grammar and punctuation in the English language, something that a well-educated person should have some. We'll look at the book that has had more editions than any other book and more influence than any other book in Western civilization. We'll spend several minutes on the Bible. We'll look at statistics, what can be done with it, what can't be done with it, and how it often, is misused, and how a well-educated person has the knowledge to know when it's being misused. We'll look at the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse: war, famine, and plague. We'll look at political science, what a well-educated person should know about that. We'll look at the world of art. And lastly, we'll take and look at calculus. We'll do a little bit of freshman calculus. And all you need is maybe a little bit of algebra, probably, is all that you'll have. And you'll be surprised at how it's not that hard to do. With those as our topics, let's begin our adventure. Philosophy. Who needs it? Who needs it? It's, is it relevant to everyday life at all? The life that you live or that I live? Or is philosophy and the study of it something that should be relegated to thousands of years ago? A kind of pie in the sky, you know, thoughts for just the fanciful person. The truth is that if you breathe, if you work, if you sing, la 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 la, if you eat pizza, if you make love, then you have choices. And those choices that you make have to reflect your values. Whether those values are values that you've thought about for years and have come to clear, rational choices about, or whether you've just picked them up from society or picked them up from TV. Do you eat any pizza? Will you work for any cause? Probably not. You have values. Who you are, where you are, those are the questions of philosophy, the central questions to life. There are three parts. There is your metaphysics, there is your epistemology, and there is your ethics. And those three together form the study of philosophy. And in future sessions, we're going to look at each of those and find out the central parts of your life. Geometry. The word geometry is split into two parts, geo and metry. Geo stands for the earth, like in the word geography. The word metry stands for measuring. Together, geometry had its roots in the word earth measuring. There were many societies before the birth of Christ that used geometry to survey the earth. The Egyptians, the Chinese, the Babylonians, the Romans, and the Greeks all found formulas such as the one that's here of 3, 4, 5 that are for a right triangle. And they found many different ways of using geometry to make their work easier. It was the Greeks, however, who went one step further. What they did was to take the formulas that had been discovered by many different civilizations and find out why they were true, to demonstrate the relationships between the formulas, to find proofs for geometry. This was the significant contribution of the Greeks to geometry, one of the contributions. So what I want to do now is to take, for the next 13 sessions, whenever I talk about geometry, and talk about some of the proofs that the Greeks and others found for geometrical objects. You look at a triangle, just any old triangle, and it has 3 inside angles, 3 interior angles. It turns out that many cultures knew that if you add up those 3 angles for any triangle, that they would add to 180 degrees. Now, but can you show that, demonstrate that to somebody, the man on the street? He says, oh yeah, I know it's true because I've measured different triangles, but can you show him that it's good for any triangle? Here's what I'd like to do on that one. Take a triangle, and on that triangle, we want to show how those 3 angles add up to 180 degrees. Demonstrate it so that anybody would believe it's true. Here's the procedure. Draw your triangle, and then across the top of the triangle, draw a line, a new line, that's parallel to the base, and that passes through that top vertex corner point. Then we notice that angle 1, down in the lower left-hand corner, is equal to angle 3 upstairs. And angle 2 is equal to angle 4. So what we've done is taken the three angles of the triangle and placed them all together up there at the top, and they equal a straight angle. It's called 180 degrees, half of a circle. So that's a demonstration the Greeks might have done to show that the angles of a triangle are equal to 180 degrees. Then the Lamb broke open the second seal, and I heard the second living creature say, "Come." Another horse came, the white horse, and its rider had a bow to conquer. Another seal the Lamb broke. "Come!" And a horse came, a red crimson horse. "And it shall bring war on the earth. War that man should kill man." And that rider was given a large sword. Then the Lamb broke open the third seal. "Come!" I looked. It was a black horse. Its riders held a pair of scales. Famine, a quart of wheat for a day's wages. And the fourth seal. "Come, come, pale ashen-colored horse." The horse was death, and hell followed in its path. And they were given authority to kill with war and famine and disease. Thus, the 6th chapter of the Apocalypse of John. The world of art. Art recreates reality. Through the mind and the eyes of the artist, we see the artist's conception of reality. His conception of the outer world, or the artist's conception of his inner world. We're not just seeing the world. When we look at the world through Disney, we see a different world than the world through, say, Sam Peckinpah. So let's look at the world through the eyes of a 16th century Flemish painter whose name was Peter Bruegel. 16th century, they always give you dates and history and the rest, but let's anchor that to something. 16th century is when Columbus was active. I know, 1492, but during the 1500s, Columbus was still sailing the ocean blue. Magellan was going, doing his exploration. The Reformation was happening. That's the 16th century. And we're going to look now at a picture that Peter Bruegel painted called The World Upside Down. Here's what it looks like. Now, what you see is a colorful, high-spirited jumble of people, but there's more to it than that. As we look at this colorful painting, it's hard to tell what's happening or what the artist's point is without knowing more. The other name for this painting, besides The World Upside Down, is called the Flemish Proverbs. And hidden inside this painting is a wordless chronicle, a wordless charade of 75 or 85, somewhere in there, we're not sure exactly, Flemish proverbs and folk sayings. And if we look at this painting closely, we can see some of those Flemish proverbs or folk sayings. On the left, we see a man dropping flowers to the ground, casting them off there in front of the pigs. There are 2 pigs at his feet, and the proverb that was common in the 16th century in Flanders was, "He who feels impelled to engage in useless work strews the ground with roses before pigs." On the right, we see a man distressed over the fact he's just spilled a large pot of something white. That one you might be able to guess the proverb. Don't cry over spilt milk. On the right, in the blue cloak, we see a man being dressed in a strange bill. It looks like a bill on the front of it. A bird bill. And the proverb is the Flemish proverb, "I hide myself under a blue cap. The more I disguise myself, the more readily I am recognized." At the top here of this picture, we'll see a man urinating out the window, and he's urinating toward a red sign that holds the image of the moon. And the proverb is, "No matter what I pursue, I never reach it." That's very positive, but that's the proverb. "I always piss toward the moon," indicating that he just never reaches his goal. In the next picture, or next part of this picture of a world turned upside down, we see a man standing in a light patch of water, holding a large fan. The proverb is, "My neighbor's luxury pierces my heart. I cannot endure the sun shining in the water." For a translation more, sun shining in the water, I might guess that would be he couldn't endure the happiness of others. As we can see then, it's not just the colorful jumble of people and lights that are there, which is what you saw when you first saw the picture, but much more than that. The background knowledge that we looked at makes a great deal of difference as to what the artist is saying to the viewer. My daughter Margaret is at college, and last month she declared herself an English major. When I heard that, did I see great dollar signs in her future? Hardly. When Margaret told me she was going to become an English major, did I figure that her job prospects had zoomed upwards? No. Margaret may be reading such classics as The Romance of Tristan and Isolde. I hope so. When I read this book, I enjoyed it very much. Chapters in here are on the quest of the lady with the hair of gold, a chapter entitled Ordeal by Iron, and the final chapter entitled Death. Her studies in English will be a delight to her all of her life. When hard times come, the great literature she will have read will provide refuge. When she has children, she may put the little ones to bed by retelling the romance of Tristan and Isolde. When she is old, she may delight in the quest of the lady with the hair of gold. Yeah, but what about her making money, getting a job, something with the contemporary scene? You know, the world screams at Margaret in terms of majors: business, engineering, military research, computers, physics. They tell her to skip reading Tristan and Isolde and get a nice, oh God, heavy PC DOS power tools. Oh, really dig into this thing here with all these numbers and echo off messages and loading files. And you get even in the back here a free program disk with 200 power tools. Wow. What can be said in response to a society that shouts this at Margaret? I guess maybe it's possible to fill your soul with money or chemical formulas or stock options. But I remember the time I was in college and we were reading Shakespeare's King Lear. We all read it together, and the teacher read the final lines of the play aloud when King Lear discovers that his daughter has died. And I remember, on her cheek, there was a tear. To go on the quest of the lady with the hair of gold, or to be blinded with, as Oedipus was, or to die with Sir Thomas More. These Margaret has chosen, and I believe she will live life fully.